So like what transpired throughout the rest of the course of that night was both the most profound and the most traumatic experience of my life. I grew up in a unique way. My parents were both transcendental meditation teachers. I grew up in a way that, spirituality and, altered states of consciousness were normalized and just part of my everyday life. Like I thought it was normal for families to meditate together. But then, as I became a teenager, a lot of that, drifted away from me. And actually, my professional life, when I was in high school, I became somewhat of like a child star because I had like a popular basketball website and I got a lot of media attention for my basketball website. I just, my ego couldn't have been bigger. So after high school, I didn't go to college. I became a full-time basketball scout. And I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17, got my own place. And by the time I was 18 and a half, I had moved back in and I was broke and had fallen flat on my face. And I was really lost. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment with my mom. I was smoking weed every day. When you're smoking 4 or 5 times a day, it's a problem, or at least it was for me. So that's, I guess, the stage that was set was, for my first psychedelic experience, was that I had reached this pinnacle as a youth and then fell flat on my face and it all came crashing down at an early age. I, like many, was exposed to the propaganda and the sensationalism of the hippie days where it's, LSD and Woodstock. But it wasn't until my early 20s that actually Chance the Rapper came out with a mixtape called Acid Rap. And Chance was my favorite rapper. He was a friend of mine. We were in Chicago. He was kind of like a cultural phenom. So I think that was when the concept of psychedelics re-entered my consciousness. It was like, oh, I got to try acid. But I don't know if at that time I knew that it was something to help and heal. I think I was just like, hey, Chance does it. My parents did it. Cool drug, got nothing to lose. Let's try it out. Yeah, so again, this is at a time that I'm like working part-time at a pizza place, sleeping on my mom's futon, 20 years old, not in a great place, and just like curious about, LSD, just, hey, let me try this thing out. And I had never been taught about set and setting. I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know how powerful this stuff was. I really had no knowledge base other than like knowing that the hippies did it and that Chance rapped about it. But I found a dealer that had LSD, and they sold me a strip of 10 on one strip. So I'm sitting in my car outside of this pizza place where my buddy was still working. He worked with me. He was still working. I was sitting in the car smoking a joint waiting for him. And I was like, this dude said to measure one hit, like whatever, like, I like cut off a third of the strip, like whatever, what does he know, and I just popped 3 of them in my mouth basically. So I'm chilling in the car waiting. And the first time I realized that it was starting to kick in was a guy was watering his lawn right outside the windshield, and he turned towards me with his hose and it started spraying rainbows like right at me. And I was like, whoa, like I'd never seen anything like that. And it was funny because the way it started was like the stereotypical LSD experience, like what you'd expect, like rainbows coming out of a hose. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. So then my friend comes out of work and he's like, I was supposed to be waiting for him to dose. We were supposed to do it together. He's like, oh, like I'm off work, whatever. And I'm already like zonked out. And he took 1 tab and we parked. The car was parked and we got out and we start walking around. So again, there's no set or setting. So I'm on 3 tabs of LSD, 20 years old, no psychedelic experience, with no place to go. We were just going to walk around Chicago all night. And it was like pretty late at night too. So like what transpired throughout the rest of the course of that night was both the most profound and the most traumatic experience of my life. And I think if I didn't have the strength and spiritual upbringing that I had and the container in my mind for this experience, I might have never came back from it. I had visions at one point where I was God. When you get these downloads, like you are God, right? You could take that literally, like, oh, I'm God, no one else is real, I'm the creator of everything. Or if you have a good guide and a good person to help you through it, and understand like, no, everything is God. You're a part of God. You're the creator of your reality, and it's an empowering thing versus a thing that could inflate your ego to the point of detriment. But I had no container for it. So at one point I'm like, oh my God, I'm God. This whole time I was God. This is crazy. And then the next moment I have this vision of being in hell for eternity. And I'm like, oh shit, am I in hell right now? Is this planet hell? Am I here forever? And it was the scariest thing you could ever see or experience. And I was seeing my life as it was, of like, hey, I'm in hell right now because I'm creating that. I created this world where I crashed and burned and I'm smoking weed all day and I'm living in this negative way, but I'm my own creator. I'm the creator of my reality, and I can shift that and create something completely different from this point on. And it wasn't an easy path, but by the end of the night, I had this rebirth, where as I started to come down from the medicine, it's the sun is coming up, and me and my buddy are walking along the lake, and I've just never seen a more beautiful sunrise and more beautiful lake and more beautiful grass and more beautiful people. So I came out of that trip with one sentence written down: I'm God, now what? And that's been the mantra for the rest of my life in the time since. I quit smoking pot right then. My addiction was done. I just like woke up and I was like, I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be this other guy who doesn't smoke weed every day. I soon after had my second psychedelic experience, and during that one had this realization that like I'll never be the person I want to be if I'm sleeping on my mom's couch. I gotta move out and get my own place. And it was one of those things. It was like I had the money to move out. I had a job, but I just like hadn't realized the importance of that independence as an adult. And then each subsequent trip from there, I would just like build upon this building block of like, what is a life I want to create? Soon after I moved to New York, soon after I met my life partner, Amelia, and it all kind of, I started creating the life that I wanted. The biggest takeaway that from that experience that continues to impact my life to this day is that, I get to create my life. No matter what your obstacles, no matter what your, limitations, you can enter life intentionally and create the life that you want to choose. Before that experience, life was happening to me, and after that experience, I've been happening to life, and it continues. That mantra continues to ring true. Every day. Yeah. Again, I think my experience was unique, and I got very lucky that I did have the spiritual upbringing and the kind of scaffolding. My first experience was not in a clinical setting. It was not in a ceremonial setting. I was flying with no parachute, and I didn't have integration afterwards. But my integration was really just meditation. And I've been meditating, using TM once or twice a day for the decade since. But in the time since, I've had a lot of psychedelic experiences where I have had integration and had groups to talk to and guides to talk to, and it helps so much. It's so much better when you have that support system. And now my growth has happened at such a more rapid rate now that I do have people to help guide me through it. I think what's unique about me as a psychonaut as opposed to other psychonauts is that I'd say 80% or 90% of my trips have been would be classified as bad trips, but I keep coming back for more because they're all healing and they're all helping, and they all, and a lot of times it's like I'm doing it to myself. It's like I get a lesson, I get a download, and I don't apply it to my life. And I come back, and then the medicine's like, hey, bro, we told you what you needed to do and you didn't do it. So you're going to have to go through the ringer again until you figure it out. The way my ego was going before psychedelics, it might have gotten so strong it never could have been killed. So I'm grateful for psychedelics for humbling me. Psychedelics have been that tool for me. For someone who wants to start their psychedelic journey, my two pieces of advice would be: one, find a trusted, experienced guide who can help prescribe you the right medicine for you in the right dosage in the right environment for you. My second piece of advice, may be controversial, is like, don't be chicken, jump in the deep end. I know a lot of people who are like, oh, like I'm interested, but like let me just try microdosing. And like, yeah, that's cool. I think if people who are scared to jump in the deep end, it's it's your ego protecting itself. Don't go in and be like, oh, I'm going to do half a dose the first time. No, jump right in, and as long as you're with it in a safe container with trusted guides, you're going to be okay. The only way out is through. You're going to get through it, and it's going to be all right, and it's going to be much better. So that'd be my advice.